Okay, interesting choice. We're starting a Dennis Rodman documentary with abstract crashing waves. Just please, no ambiguous quotes. No. Just roll the opening credits.
I think a lot of people wonder why they became who they are. And I do it a lot. I try to go back in my mind to understand what made Dennis Rodman Dennis Rodman.
It begins with innocence. A lifelong journey is ignited by loss. Identity is navigated, however complicated. Identity is met with opposition, and an outcast is born. Opposition leads to rebellion, and a vow to take a different path. Rebellion leads to drastic change, where acceptance is pursued in unimaginable places. Change brings success and family. But when it's only a fleeting taste, it leads to dark, dark places. Something new is born, something peculiar and remarkable in history-making. Individuality leads to fame and to familiar tropes about its cost. When the end of the journey is near, when there are few doors left to open, what's left? Maybe just a question. Whatever was sought along the way, was it found?
I really don't recall most of my childhood because I try to blank that out. It's gonna sound really up, but it made Dennis Rodman.
Dennis was a very clingy child. He was very shy. He didn't talk very much. He was not outgoing at all. I mean, it took 4 of us to drag him on a bus just to go to the daycare. Come on.
Dennis's father left the family when Dennis was 3 years old, and there was a lot of attachment to his mom. Really struggled to leave her side.
I didn't think it affected me and my sister a whole lot because we had Mom. I think it did more damage to my brother. I think he missed a father figure.
I never really thought about that because she never talked about it. She never really discussed that with us. To this day, she never discussed that.
You never want to tell your child that the father don't want them. The girls was pretty much okay, but Dennis was very needy.
I was really shy, man. I was more like hide behind my sisters or hide behind somebody.
When the girls got older, they went everywhere with Dennis. They sort of protected him because they outgrew him physically. And everybody thought the girls were older because Dennis was so quiet.
I was just so happy. Whatever they did, I followed them. I followed their lead. Wherever they went, I went. I think because I didn't have a male figure in my life.
He was in a house full of females. He played with us because, you know, he had to. We dressed him up as a girl.
We used to play house. She used to dress me in women's clothes. you know, put lipstick on me, all this stuff like that. She just dressed me like I was a woman because I went with everything.
We were like, put this wig on and put this dress on. You know, you gotta put your purse on. You need another lady and you'll be good for her.
A lot of people thought I was like, they thought I was gay because I was always with my sisters all the time. I used to get bullied all the time, man. I mean, I always let people beat me up a lot because I never would fight back.
I think it shot him way back further into his shell.
Shirley moved Dennis to another middle school to prevent the bullying, but his social life wouldn't improve in high school. Sorry, can I stop us here? I know Dennis was bullied, but this music is a bit much. Can I get something a little lighter? Now we talking. In many ways, high school was defined by one's adolescent clique, your place in the ever-important social hierarchy. In late 1970s Dallas, Texas, you had your geeks, jocks, theater nerds.
Who are you calling a nerd?
Whatever, dude. Your band kids, stoners, and then there was Dennis, who, during his time at 2 Oak Cliff high schools, was cut from the football team, quit the basketball team, and struggled to find any place within this teenage caste system.
He had a few friends, not very many.
I was more of like a loner.
He was skinny, he was awkward.
He had big ears that protruded, and I think he was very, very self-conscious of his looks.
He didn't really feel like girls would be interested in him.
He didn't have a lot of girlfriends, no. He had us.
Meanwhile, his younger sisters became standout basketball players.
Rebound, Rodman.
Eventually earning athletic scholarships to Division I college programs.
Rodman inside.
Everybody looked over him, and it was always about me and my sister. It's like he didn't think that he had a voice.
Maybe the only distinguishing label that Dennis picked up was a not-so-flattering nickname.
Working at 7-Eleven, I used to play pinball a lot. A lot, and just be so animated with my body. And everybody said, oh, you move just like a worm. And it just stuck with me. I agree, I'm the worm.
Dennis just didn't have anything going for him. It kind of led and fed into that inferiority complex he had.
High school was a time of sort of seeking a place and really not finding it. The outsiderness, if you will, that he carried with him through his life really started there.
I really had no direction because when your mother's working 3 jobs and if you have no father, it's very difficult to have any type of focus on anything that you want to do. I had to go to summer school to graduate, and after that I was living at home, no job, no nothing. When I did get a job, I worked at the airport every night, to mop floors, wipe windows, whatever I had to do to clean the airport. That was like the beginning of the end for me.
When he was a janitor at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, he stole a bunch of watches by sticking his broom in through one of these grates.
And so he cleared out about 50 watches from an airport store.
Not knowing the fact that they had cameras everywhere, you know, stupid me, what they call it, the dumbest criminals. So I was one of those guys. When I took the watches, all I did was give them away. I didn't even sell them. I was trying to please people. I said, man, here's a watch, here's a watch, here's a watch, here's a watch. I think maybe because I just wanted people to like me.
And that's kind of the earliest sign of the overly generous Dennis, who tried to find a way to maybe influence people to like him in ways that weren't always productive.
I'm in airport jail. You believe that? Airport jail.
They kept him overnight, and I think that scared him out of his wits. I think he cried, I don't know. Blubbering like a baby, I don't know.
Oh, man, I was such a I just cried for no reason.
I think it did. I think it scared him to the core.
It was one of those times where it's like, wow, I really screwed up this time. You know, this is not a game anymore.
On the day of his court appearance, the criminal charges were dropped because he hadn't sold any of the stolen watches. But as the next 2 years progressed, Dennis bounced between odd jobs and remained at home with his mom.
I finally told him, I gave him an ultimatum. He was just laying around the house. You either gotta have to go to college, go in service, or get out of my house.
Very simple, plain to the point. If you don't get a job, I'm gonna kick you out. And, eventually kicked me out. It was difficult because I'll stay in my friend's house, or I stay at the park, or I stay behind the 7-Eleven. I had like a bag of clothes and stuff like that. Go to my friend's house during the daytime, maybe get something to eat. If not, I just roam the streets all day long. I got so used to being homeless, I just accepted that this is the way it was going to be the rest of my life.
When Shirley kicked Dennis out of the house, he took it very personally. It really damaged his relationship with his mom because he felt sort of this abandonment, even if he was 20 years old. That grudge holding did two things. It created a personality that maybe created some troubles for Dennis down the road, but it also created this drive that he had that, is unlike almost anyone else we've ever seen in professional sports.
Professional sports, huh? But when Dennis had graduated high school, he was 5'9" and hadn't played a full season of organized basketball in his life. So what am I missing?
Have you recently been kicked out of your home? Have you served time for doing something stupid, 5'9" and unathletic? Tired of praying to the genetic gods? You need Wonder Grow. Watch. Simply shake the powder onto your head and let Wonder Grow do the rest. It's that easy. See yourself go from 5'9" to 6 feet to, oh wow, 6'8". Don't be a fraction of what you could in life. It's time to grow up with Wonder Grow. Call now, 1-800-2-GROW-UP, or send check or money order to the address on your screen. Sorry, no CODs.
The fact that he grew 11 inches, that's the kind of growth spurt after high school that you just don't see that often.
In a 1.5 year span after graduating high school, Dennis Rodman would grow nearly a foot.
One day, he was like 5'8". Blink of an eye, he like 6'7", 6'8". The more I grew, the more I got more into basketball.
After the pituitary madness subsided, 6'8" Dennis Rodman picked up a basketball again, mostly at the rec center across the street from his mother's apartment. In the summer of 1982, he was noticed by Cook County, a junior college in Gainesville, Texas, but never completed a full season.
I wasn't into school at that time, and I flunked out, went back to Dallas. My mother kicked me out again, so I lived in the streets again for 6 months, and then I guess luck struck again.
Luck came in the form of Lon Reisman, an assistant coach at Southeastern Oklahoma State University, a small NAIA school in Durant, Oklahoma.
When I first saw him in the fall of '82, he was at Cook County Community College. He looked like a diamond in the rough. There's no doubt about that. So I called his mom, Shirley, and she said, Lon, come on down. Let's see if we can get him to have a visit to Southeastern.
Shirley allowed Dennis back into the house under one condition: he speak with Reisman. But upon the coach's arrival, the 23-year-old refused to come out of his room.
I was in the room, he just tried to talk to me. I was like, I didn't want to do it.
I was bound and determined I was going to stay until he got out of that room. I think I waited there for, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours. Whatever I said must have struck home because he finally came out. When I finally convinced him to visit Southeastern, and we left that morning for Southeast Oklahoma, I took him straight to the gym.
It was funny that he said, do you want to play here? I don't know what the hell to say. I guess so. I think I ran out of options because if I went back, I'd probably be in the street again. And when I left Dallas, I said, I'm never coming back here again. That's the last thing I said. When I went there, I said, I'm done, I'm out. I'm not coming back ever.
There probably were some areas in this part of Oklahoma that didn't have some real welcoming attitudes to black people.
When I was living there in Durant, people call you that N-word. What are you doing here? You know, you effing black guy. Why you here, you effing N-word? I heard it every day, pretty much all day long. It didn't faze me at all. I'm so used to hearing it back in the neighborhood. When you hear so much, you don't really give a shit the color it is. I never looked at it as a black and white thing.
In every instance, when a white person uses this term, it's negative and racist. That's not controversial. To not understand the difference in context and racial history speaks to Dennis Rodman's lack of knowledge about his own identity and race in American society.
I'm still naive about being black in a white community. I was just trying to figure out, am I gonna fit in?
There was a part of Dennis that almost had a masochistic streak, and I think that his time in Durant, Oklahoma, in a weird way, kind of satisfied that. The racist taunts that he got sort of, in a strange way, validated what he felt about himself.
I knew I had to adjust to it because it's a different place. It's like I'm trying to fit in somewhere. I'm just trying to make people like me.
All the cattle are standing like statues. All the cattle are standing like statues. They don't turn their heads as they see me ride by. But a little brown maverick is winking her eye. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. Oh, what a beautiful day.
Despite the less than warm welcome that Dennis received upon his arrival in Oklahoma, he was determined to find inclusion and acceptance anywhere he could find it. And he found it in an unlikely and sometimes uncomfortable place, with a 13-year-old boy. Dennis met Brian Rich while working as a counselor at a summer basketball camp before his first season at Southeastern. Brian was forced by his parents to attend the camp, the first social thing he had done in 6 months since fatally shooting his best friend in a hunting accident.
You passed right there in my arms, man. I live with that every day. Not a day goes by.
Poor Brian just went into his shell and had a hard time dealing with that. He went to a basketball camp, and for some reason, these two guys bonded.
We got into a good relationship after, about 5 days, and I invited him home.
We drove to Boat Cheetah, population 702, probably. But he never told his parents I was black. Black is 6'8". When we go to the house and introduce her to his mom, I think she almost passed out. She passed out. He saw a 6-foot black guy coming into our house.
I didn't pass out. That's just his exaggeration. But I imagined a little white boy.
So Brian had this brilliant idea. He had this brilliant idea. He wanted me to spend the night. And I said, spend the night, dude? I can't spend the night. You nuts?
So he slept in Brian's room, right by his bed.
The next morning, I turned over. He's laying right beside me. I mean, literally right beside me.
Mom and Dad was kind of like, what? Because you got a relationship with somebody that's, 21, 22 years old, versus 12. I mean, Nothing bad happened. He was just lonely. He just like he needed somebody, you know? And I did too. He wanted me to be around him all the time, so Coach Reisman and all them, they said, all right, if you're gonna be with us all the time, we'll just make you the ball boy.
I wasn't acting like a 22, 23, 24-year-old adult. I was acting like a kid. We still playing Nerf basketball.
2 o'clock in the morning, we'd be in there just tearing the house down. You like a big kid, man, that's all we did.
We actually get matching clothes together, matching sweatshirts, matching jeans, matching tennis shoes. That's probably the first really changing point in my life. And I think somebody actually liked me. Wow, this little kid that's white actually likes me. I mean, he actually enjoyed being with me, being around me.
Worm did not play basketball on his high school team in Dallas. He was considered too small. After high school, Rodman shot up and he found a home at Southeastern Oklahoma State in Durant.
Lest we forget here, guys, Dennis came to Oklahoma to play basketball.
The Worm is gonna start.
I remember the first game. I'll never forget this.
Lob inside to Dennis Rodman.
We won the game in a tough game, and he comes in the locker room after the game, and he looks me square in the face, and he says, I hope I didn't disappoint you tonight. I looked at the stat sheet, and they had 24 points and 19 rebounds. Would you disappoint me every night this year?
Inside to Worm Rodman. The hook. For the hook shot. That wasn't Kareem out there, was it?
I mean, he was a maniac on the floor.
Pretty incredible, just his athleticism, but he also played with such passion. He was like a pogo stick.
He just looked like he loved to play the game. He played it with an enthusiasm that I hadn't seen before.
That he played with a joy that very few have ever played with.
I ain't coming to be a star or anything. I just came here to play ball and try to, do my part as a player and to help the team.
Worm gets the two.
I ain't had no skills or nothing. I'm just playing on sheer raw talent. Nobody taught me how to rebound. Nobody taught me how to score.
People used to call me and say, hey, can you teach my guys how to rebound like Dennis Rodman?
I could tell you, I practiced rebound every day. No, I didn't. I just went out there, I hustled people to be the best.
In 3 years with the Savages, Rodman averaged over 25 points and 15 rebounds per game and was chosen an NAIA All-American 3 times.
At the end of the year, Lon Reese came and said, dude, you made All-American. He said, I knew you'd make All-American. I said, what is that? I didn't know what that was. I said, All-American, what the hell is that? He said, you one of the best in the country.
Trying to, get through school, try to get a degree and things, and when I finish school, I just, hope for the best.
At that time in his life, basketball was what provided him with his identity. It's what provided him with his confidence and his self-esteem, and for the first time gave him something that he could say, I do this better than other people.
While Dennis made a name for himself on the court, the Rich family was there every step of the way. Dennis rarely spent nights away from their home, giving up his dorm room for a spot on the living room floor or a spare bed.
I just really treated him about like I did my own.
He treated me just like one of his boys. And if they got out of line, he would always put me in the truck and take me 12 miles down the road. 12 miles down the road and give me this lecture like a son, right? And I come back crying. I'm like, oh my God. That right there told me right there I was part of the family.
To think of this guy on a tractor on a 600-acre farm, milking cows with a white family, it was culture shock beyond the point of comprehension.
I pretty much adapted to be like one of their kids. Like a real family. I just loved it. I loved every minute of it.
He talked about adoption. I said, your mother wouldn't like that.
I think I resented it more than anything. They made it seem like they was more than what they were to him. I kind of felt like an outsider.
Dennis's newfound sense of belonging would prove to be even more remarkable, considering Pat Rich's complicated relationship with race.
He told me why he didn't like black women. And I said, but that's who you should date, is black women, your race. And that's the way I was raised.
She could not stand it. The girls I was hanging out with, they would come back and tell me, oh my God, man, she's telling my mom that I'm having sex with a black guy. I'm like, all right.
One night, I was telling him and Brian what they could and couldn't do. And it made Dennis mad. He said, you know, Miss Rich, you have a big mouth. And when he said that, that kind of ticked me off a little. And I said, okay, you're gonna have to watch your mouth.
In the angry day.
And so he got up and left and went out and was walking down the road. He was leaving. I begged him to come back.
I wasn't even bothered by that. She's not used to being around, you know, black people. She could have said a lot worse. But even then, I didn't think it was racial. I just took it. I just felt the Rich family was more of a family than my own mother was my own family.
The easy narrative is that he was saved by this white family. They gave him a home. And Shirley, in Dennis's mind, took his home away.
I think at the same time, Shirley is saying, look, I kicked you out because you were going nowhere. And as a result, you made it. I didn't bail on you. I wasn't your father. I did not leave you.
I didn't know where I fit in, but I knew it was his mom. I loved him, and I never demanded anything of Dennis. Nothing. Nothing. I just wanted him to be happy.
I think I felt resentment to my mother because now I was doing so well and successful. All of a sudden now she started paying attention to me. All of a sudden now you want to be a mother. Where was you then? Where was you at when I needed you? Where was you at when you kicked me out? Where was you at? Where was you at? Now I'm doing so good and being successful. Now all of a sudden you want to come in my life? So I pretty much turned my back on her. I think she felt like she betrayed by me. Nothing I can do about that because, you know, I didn't want to go back to that life I was living in the beginning. Whatever I did, whatever I left there, I'm proud of it. I don't talk bad about the people that was there when I was there. So I have no negative things to say about that town.
Welcome to the 1986 NBA Draft.
Dennis Rodman, the youngster from Southeast Oklahoma State, went to Detroit as the 27th pick.
People didn't know who I was. That's the first thing about it. They didn't know who I was. They thought I was just some skinny kid coming from Oklahoma. They didn't know what to think of this kid.
We asked our scout, Will Robinson, at the time, he had to be 80-some-odd years old, and he said, hey, man, this guy, Dennis, you know, he gets a rebound, he throws it to half court, and he dunks on the other end ahead of everybody else. We're like, okay, Will, you're 80, you're getting senile, you know, right, or whatever you say.
You expect somebody at 26 to have a certain level of maturity.
He probably was a little needier than a lot of Chuck's other players, and Chuck sensed that.
Rodman's a free spirit, doesn't know anything except playing hard.
While Dennis Rodman and Chuck Daly's relationship flourished, Daly realized that he had something unique at his disposal. Because while off the court, he wasn't the typical NBA rookie, on the court, Rodman wasn't from another planet, he wasn't from another galaxy, he was from another universe in time.
Everything about Dennis was weird. Every player wants to come in and score. You don't want to look at your stat line and it says you got 4 points, but But Dennis didn't care.
Rodman came in and turned the NBA upside down on his head.
He knew he wasn't going to get the ball. He knew he wasn't going to get the shots. He just went out and did what Dennis Rodman does.
He's getting every rebound. He's going for every block shot. He's cutting you off and taking a charge.
And he would get wiped out. You'd think, oh my gosh, somebody killed him.
His energy was just endless. Playing defense, getting right on top of somebody, it's like, lighten up, dude. And the ball's 40 feet from you.
For him having asthma, running up and down court, it sounded like he was having an asthma attack, but it also sounded like it was a locomotive.
He was flying all over the court. Even if he had no chance at a loose ball, diving into the crowd, he would get up, the place would go crazy.
Dennis would skip along the outside, shaking his hand, running down court. Not to anybody in particular. He was literally cheering himself. He was giving you the greatest show.
I would watch Dennis for hours watching video, and all it was misses.
Some people shoot it, they ball, reballs 4 times, 5 times, hits the rim. Is it hitting with the seams pointed this way, seams pointed that way? Does it bounce long, bounce short? Does it hit the back? Does it hit the 3rd loop? Does it hit the 4th loop? I knew from day one that this was a genius on another level.
Dennis Rodman, in his moment, for 2, 3, 4 years, the most popular player on the team without ever scoring. I can't imagine that's ever happened in the history of the NBA.
As unique as Dennis Rodman's playing style was for the NBA in the late 80s, in Detroit, a one-of-a-kind mentality, one that would eventually give them the label the Bad Boys, defined what the Pistons were all about in the era.
We were about disruption emotionally, psychologically, physically. But the main thing that we wanted to do was really crush and destroy you mentally.
Oh, this is ugly. And I think that actually put fear in a lot of people's eyes. The fact that you're going to get pretty much, fucked up if you go come play against us.
Here's a fight as Rodman wants to go after Stockton.
The Bad Boys was a moniker to a lot of guys on the Pistons. To Dennis Rodman, it was real.
Rodman makes the free throw and points down court at Jerry Sloan.
It may have been a reflection from when he was younger and he got bullied around, and he could now go on the court and be that tough guy.
And Rodman and Jordan going at each other.
He loved everything about that very insulated, us against the world mentality that the Pistons had.
By Dennis's 3rd season in 1988-89, his defense, rebounding, and energy had become an invaluable asset in Detroit. The Pistons ended the season on a 30-4 run, blazed past Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals, and swept the Los Angeles Lakers to capture Detroit's first NBA title.
The 1989 Finals are history. Hail the new champions, the Detroit Pistons.
For Rodman, it was an unbridled joy that I can still remember him to this day just saying, I'm never taking off my jersey. And I think he wore his jersey for 3 days with champagne soaked on it, slept in it.
2 of the new champions are with us from Los Angeles this morning. Are we keeping you guys up?
We never went to sleep.
Never went.
That's the highlight of my life, man. I just love making people happy. It was amazing, man. All of a sudden now, I was the star in Detroit after the first chip. I was a star. I was all of a sudden, I was bigger than Isaiah. I became like the darling of Detroit.
As the Pistons looked to repeat as champions during the 1989-90 season,
There's the Worm doing his usual.
Dennis was selected to his first All-Star game.
From the Detroit Pistons, Dennis Rodman.
And named the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year.
Now I'd like you to meet the NBA Defensive Player of the Year, Mr. Dennis Rodman. You're up.
That's a dream for me, dream come true for me.
The first time he won the Defensive Player of the Year, I mean, he was getting so many kudos, so much respect. It's that validation of being one of the best after being nothing for so much of your life, or being believed to be nothing by other people.
Looking back at that and realizing just how many conflicting emotions must have been going through his mind, the belonging and the abandonment and the self-esteem and some of the masochistic things that he felt about himself, they were all gone in this moment.
I just thought that,
I wanted this one so bad.
Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's go. You can dig her there. You can dig her. Okay, relax.
I wanted it so bad, and I thought that was the greatest achievement in the world. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to cry. I didn't know you were supposed to show that your heart was on your sleeve. I didn't know that.
It was a time when you're supposed to be a man, and men didn't cry. Well, Dennis did. He didn't care.
That is what people like so much about him. He was so raw and so vulnerable.
I'm even getting chills now because I'm thinking about that damn thing.
Dennis Rodman never envisioned, never felt he deserved the success or the accolades that he received. And I think his entire career was basically equivalent to an out-of-body experience.
A month after winning the Defensive Player of the Year award, Dennis Rodman and the Pistons would give their season a fitting final chapter against the Portland Trail Blazers in the NBA Finals.
The Pistons repeat, and the Motor City still reigns supreme. Back-to-back champagne again, boy, you hear me? Again!
We felt like we were so invincible because I think a lot of guys started to live up to the bad boy image. We deserve it.
Now, hard work, baby. Hard work. That's all it is. Hard work.
I know who else you love in this building. The NBA's Defensive Player of the Year. The Worm, Dennis Rodman.
We provided an environment and a community where he can walk into the locker room and be whatever he wanted to be on that day, and there was no judgment.
Dennis just loved, when they said we were a family, it felt like it.
The togetherness that Pistons team had was a very important thing to Dennis. It provided the stability that he needed. It was a structure, it was friendship, it was all these things that he had sought, maybe without knowing it, throughout his whole life. That was the happiest and the most pure he ever was.
This is gonna sound really, really bad. 86 to 91, I think if we could have had sex with each other, I think we probably would have did that. That's how close we were.
Dennis didn't get that it was going to end. He thought we all were going to retire Pistons.
In Dennis's mind, this is going to go on forever because he's not thinking 2, 3 years, even 2 months down the line.
This is like my home away from home. I thought we'd be there together forever. That's what I thought.
He wanted it to continue the same way for a long time, but that's not real life. Real life is times change, and changes came to the Pistons.
After losing to the Chicago Bulls in the 1991 Eastern Conference Finals, during the offseason, shooting guard Vinnie Johnson was waived. Then a year later, the real death blow.
I get traded and Chuck left, and Dennis loses his shit, man.
There are now some mighty big shoes to fill in Detroit. Chuck Daly has resigned.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I feel really, really bothered by this. He shouldn't be gone. Losing a basketball game is not important to losing the person that you love and care about.
The separation anxiety that he felt from not having Chuck Daly as his coach just blew his mind apart.
I can't see Chuck Daly leaving the Detroit Pistons and me staying here and playing basketball because it won't feel right. It won't feel like home.
He had no idea that this was a business. None. To him, it was like this was family.
He was alone. I think he really felt like he was alone and maybe abandoned, maybe betrayed by people he was really close to.
Dennis's basketball family in Detroit had become the most important and influential thing in his life. But he had another family, an actual family.
Can you say rebound?
Yeah.
Good.
In 1987, he met Annika Bakes at a club in Sacramento. The two struck up a tumultuous love affair that would span the next 5 years. And in late 1987, Annie became pregnant.
Kind of sucked. Just to be honest with you, kind of sucked. I didn't understand how to be a father. I didn't wish I didn't have her, but it's like I didn't know what to do with it. I was so wrapped up in the basketball.
Yeah, that's the truth. My dad wasn't there. Maybe I can count on one hand, or I'll be generous. I'll count on two hands how many times I saw my father growing up. It was hard for me at the time to look at him as this accomplished basketball player because all I was seeing was, oh, my dad's not here. And then that translated to what I deserved. And looking back, I deserved more than that.
I don't see my daughter. And when I see a little girl,
What is it that touches you about your little girl?
It was sad in a lot of ways because he would get emotional talking about her, but he had difficulty following through.
I don't get to see her. Pick up the phone and call her. Well, I've done that many times, but for some reason, I just can't get through.
I think there was a part of him that knew he couldn't be a father. I think he knew I was being taken care of, and I think he thought that I was better off.
Adding to the turbulent 1992 offseason was a short-lived marriage to Alexis's mother. It would end in divorce in 82 days.
Annie didn't want to be around him. So if you don't want to be around him, you darn sure ain't gonna let your kid be around him.
I said, damn, this girl's trying to take my baby away from me. And I thought that this just started to really sink in very deeply and hard. Now I started to realize how this family thing works. And all of a sudden now, everybody's leaving. You know, my child, my ex-wife, Chuck, other players, and I'm like...
The hell with basketball. The hell with everything.
The Worm is coming off the best of his 6 NBA seasons. He led the league with 18-plus rebounds a game last year, but saying he just does not feel motivated anymore.
All right, Worm.
I actually started to lose all value about being in the NBA.
That's when I really saw Dennis Rodman act a fool, and I mean really act a fool.
Okay, watch this now.
Dennis looking more than a little frustrated.
It was clear that Dennis couldn't handle it, but at the same time, you don't want somebody that's going to be there that's going to be disruptive.
You didn't show up for the shoot-around today.
That means I'm in trouble.
Rodman has missed 20 games, 15 of those with injury, the rest is suspension.
Rodman has had a difficult and emotional time this season, his mood frequently being characterized as despondent.
He was actually a detriment. The whole city was tired of Dennis Rodman.
People started looking at me and said, wow, what's wrong with him? And I used to go in my house, lock myself in the house, and not come out. I had policemen come to my house and check on me. I think a lot of people was worried the fact that I was going to really endanger myself.
Would you call it depression? I would say no, but a lot of other people say yes. Doctors would say yes.
You knew it would be, difficult for Dennis. I knew that he would never find unconditional love again in the NBA like we gave it to him.
I just went over there to the Palace. I went just parked right there in the parking lot, and I had a gun on my gun rack. So I took the gun, and I just pretty much just had it like this, right? And I just kept looking at the Palace. I just kept looking over there, and just thinking, what the I know it's a cowardly thing to say, but I just have no idea what to do. I think the fact that I just didn't care.
Dennis is in the parking lot in his truck with a rifle, and he's got his shoe and sock off, which is how you are able to shoot yourself with a rifle. You're going, it can't possibly end this way. Whatever the problems are, whatever the challenges are, it can't possibly end this way for this kid.
I turned on the radio, and I just fell asleep. Thank God, just fell asleep.
Dennis, everything all right?
Okay.
What happened? I just want people concerned.
I was shocked to ever think that Dennis would ever have been in that kind of a position.
I never believed a word that he was going to kill himself, but I didn't want him in a situation like that. He just had all this stuff jangle up in his head.
I don't believe Dennis went to the Palace to kill himself.
I thought it was probably a little bit overblown.
Did I believe he was going to put a gun in his mouth and shoot himself at the Palace of Auburn Hills? Yes. Nobody else is going to say that. That was right at that point. That was right at the point of so much was happening.
Oh, yeah, too much. It's not a big deal.
You okay?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine.
He was an insecure young man for a lot of justifiable reasons who never really completely grew up. I'm not sure Dennis ever at that age was able to put things in order for himself to make sense of everything that he was going through.
Now, I put the gun to my head. I wasn't trying to shoot Dennis Rodman. I was trying to change the old one so the new can come out.
He would kill, metaphorically, this old self and would be this person that he feels like he was meant to be. He would show his feelings. He would talk about things that were important to him. He would embrace his differences.
He was constantly battling his inner demons, and one of those demons was, I'm not normal like these people. I'm a weirdo.
He did decide that if he was going to go on, it had to be under different terms.
When I left Detroit, that 93 season, my mentality became the world.
Dennis Rodman used to be a Piston. He's out of there.
It'd be good for the man called the Worm to get a change of scenery.
He okays a deal that makes him a San Antonio Spur. Sean Elliott is headed for Detroit.
I wasn't really paying attention to what people were thinking about me at the time. I was pretty much focusing as being the new Dennis Rodman. San Antonio, when I went there, it was a life-changing experience.
Dennis Rodman had a surprise waiting for the fans who showed up to see him at the Alamo Dome, the San Antonio Spurs' newest star in the team's new home.
I was with him when he was getting introduced in San Antonio. He had just been to see the movie Demolition Man, and so we go to this hair salon. He says, I want my hair dyed blonde. I want a mohawk like Wesley Snipes. So we finally drive there after his hair is just burnt to a crisp. Everybody else is there. All the rest of his new teammates. There's this buzz in the arena because, sure, he's late. And, you know, it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? You can't do this on the first day. They got a microphone. He just kind of strolls and saunters in. The crowd's going crazy.
You can like me or you can hate me. But I know one thing. When I step on this damn floor, all I'm going to do is get solid.
I'm just here to get solid.
Let's get solid.
And that's it. And he kind of walks out.
When I said that, I took my hat off, and people flipped. I'm like, you're just going to take Dennis Rodman the way he is.
I loved it. But you have to remember, I had a veteran team who had always done things a certain way.
He likes that drama. He likes, you know, shaking people up. This does it. Shook all of us up. It was a grand entrance.
I remember thinking, you know, we need to build a team. We need to build a culture here. And I just felt like that really wasn't the way we were going to do it, you know, by being rock stars and dropping the mic and then walking off.
That's me. That's Dennis Rodman.
Oh, my God. Here comes the legend of Dennis Rodman.
This city going to just be upside down when I get through.
That right there was the evolution and the revolution of Dennis Rodman. Just here it is.
Dennis Rodman, the Detroit incarnation, was pretty straightforward. See Exhibit A. But what he began to transform into, seemingly overnight, was anything but that.
It was crazy what he started doing to himself physically.
He's changing his hair, he's doing tattoos, he's getting piercings. I wasn't trying to be this individual trying to stand out. No, it just happened.
Rodman with three! Well, we told you, blondes have more fun.
It was a time where people didn't know what to do with weirdness in the sports world. Counterculture was kind of down.
Dennis Rodman with that wild hairdo of his.
The idea that this kind of individuality or this sort of self-expression would be accepted and enjoyed, this sort of maverick attitude that he had, no, this isn't what sports culture wanted back then.
People in the city start to look at me like, wait a minute, who is this guy, Dennis Rodman?
Can't stop Dennis Rodman.
It went from Dennis Rodman, the player, to Dennis Rodman, the entertainer.
When he started getting some positive reinforcement for letting his freak flag fly, then it kind of opened the floodgates.
I'm like, oh my God, my life has changed 720 degrees. I said, wow, how can a guy dye his hair and change the face of the NBA? That was being me. That was the new me.
Dennis just got solid.
I am beginning to love Dennis Rodman. I am beginning to like Dennis Rodman as a person.
In the midst of this dramatic transformation, there would be another small, subtle variable to materialize in Dennis Rodman's life.
Recently, we read that Madonna thought you were a turn-on. I can imagine I'm her material boy.
Girl at the time was working for me. She was used to pick up the phone and say, Dennis, there's some woman named Madonna's on the phone. She wants to talk to you. I said, the singer?
Yes, Dennis, the singer. Madonna and Dennis would meet at a photo shoot for a Vibe magazine article, and soon after, she would attend the Spurs' final game of the 1993-94 season.
There is his sidekick, Madonna. They have been spotted from time to time.
Once the game's over, he brings Madonna in the locker room, and I have to introduce Madonna to the team.
John Lucas had to tell the guys, hey, stop taking your clothes off, stop taking your clothes off. And she went, no, John, it's okay, let them take their clothes off.
Yeah, the Madonna episode was very interesting.
Sideshow distractions. Talking about Rodman's relationship with Madonna.
She's Madonna. No big deal. You know, you want to ask me have I slept with her and all that stuff like that. See, that's what you're getting at, see.
Madonna was interested in Dennis because Dennis was unusual and iconoclastic and rebellious in the way that she was. But when you date Madonna, the world finds out about you, a world that hadn't thought about you before.
My career actually took off. It wasn't Madonna that kicked it off. I think the fact my life was going that direction. I didn't have a compass. It was just doing that, by itself.
Without Madonna, there's no Dennis Rodman the way we know it, period. Dennis got to watch firsthand how you become a superstar.
Off-the-wall basketball star Dennis Rodman tells the new issue of Playboy magazine that Madonna dumped him after he refused to impregnate her.
She wanted to have my baby. Great. Should I have a baby with Madonna, get married to Madonna, live with Madonna, live in the shadow of Madonna? No.
By the start of Dennis's second season in San Antonio, Madonna may have been out of his life, but he would still find a way to make headlines.
I want my that color.
In May 1995, Michael Silver spent a week with Dennis Rodman for a Sports Illustrated article.
Whew! It got a lot weirder and more extreme than I could have hoped.
In which he revealed some provocative insight into his feelings about sexuality.
I told Dennis, you gotta realize, when this stuff comes out about gay sex fantasies and all the other things we're putting in here, I go, your life is gonna change. You're gonna have hecklers yelling at you. There's gonna be a whole sector of society that can't process it or deal with it. And he goes, yeah, bro, but it's gonna make me a fuck of a lot of money.
In the article, Dennis discussed visiting gay bars, having homosexual fantasies, and feeling comfortable dressing in drag. These were things that had become a part of his lifestyle since leaving Detroit.
It was no secret, it was well known in town that Dennis had started to frequent gay bars along the St. Mary's Strip.
They was like my brothers and sisters because they were so loving. The gay community is so loving. I just gravitated to that.
He was hugely insecure, and he could be with a group of people that was accepting and warm and loving to him.
He likes being with people who are deemed outcasts, the social misfits, if you will.
It's just me expressing my views and expression towards everything I believe in, but I'm not gay. And we set the record straight. It's just something that I like to do, hang out with my gay friends.
I can't stress enough how wild it seemed to mainstream America in the mid-90s that he was willing to say, yeah, I think about having sex with men, or yeah, it's okay to be gay.
This was the AIDS epidemic time, so there was a lot of homophobia, and Dennis Rodman put the AIDS ribbon in his hair.
The kinship with the LGBT group was, yes, we're all treated like outcasts, but also I think they had a similar party vibe, you know? I mean,
I gotta admit, man, gay people know how to party, bro.
For the first time, Dennis wanted to let it rip a little bit.
You see other people dressing like you, acting like you, or maybe just trying to be themselves. I'm like, wow, that's rewarding to me.
Here's a guy who colors his hair. He says outrageous things. Now he's talking about a significant social issue. I don't think a lot of people knew what to make of it at the time.
A lot of people had some skepticism about what his true intentions were, whether he truly wanted to embrace and champion the community or whether he was doing it for shock value.
I never was like, I'm gonna make $10 million because I dress like this. I just like doing it.
This genuine feeling that he had, maybe it was inevitable that it would become almost a parody. The more he expressed it in sort of cartoonish ways, undermined that message a little bit.
I think it was too easy for people to dismiss it as, oh, well, this is just part of his bit. I don't think it was part of Dennis's bit. It really fits into a sense of alienation and emotional isolation that he's really kind of carried throughout his life.
His internal struggle was everyone told him he was ugly his entire life. He didn't think he was sexy until he put on lipstick and nail polish.
To openly just be so comfortable with doing the things he was doing sent a very strong message, even without him having to voice it in a politically salient way.
Dennis Rodman couldn't sit down and tell you why all this mattered. So in terms of being a role model, maybe that couldn't happen. But he freaked out a lot of people in the sports world, and that was wonderful.
Dennis felt a real kinship with the gay community, and yet at the same time, he reveled in the sexual exploits of how many women he was with, the epitome of the masculine stereotype.
No.
That is a gay bar.
Don't shoot this.
That's a gay bar.
Don't shoot this conversation.
That is a gay bar
Stop.
that we're going to tonight.
No, we're not. We're colleagues.
No, we're not. I'll play ball if you got it.
Maybe it's not a good idea to try and reconcile competing beliefs as they emerge from Dennis Rodman.
Fair enough. There was another element to this developing persona, an on-court temperament that was thought to be a missing link to a Spurs championship.
The Spurs lacked toughness, and the label that you heard over and over again was that they were soft.
Sonata Pathetique, which is a beautiful piece.
And they thought that Dennis would be a perfect fix for all of that.
I ain't seen nobody on this team hit nobody yet. It's getting really annoying when you've been too nice. You got to go out there and kick somebody's ass. You got to play basketball. It's nice.
Oh, look out. I think that's all for Rodman.
Uh-oh. Now he's fighting with one of his assistant coaches. Look at here.
Everybody understood that Dennis could become an issue on any given day.
Now Rodman and King. Forward, Rodman shoves him. He's had it. He's gone. He knocked the policeman aside.
Wow, this guy, he's went from being the mild-mannered guy to this wild, insane guy. Now he's actually really a bad boy.
I can't bow down and say, okay, well, I got to change my act now so I can be a good boy and be Wally Cleaver and do what they want me to do.
Since his trade to San Antonio 13 months ago, Dennis Rodman has had 3 suspensions, 8 ejections, 40 technical fouls, and paid $54,250 in fines.
In many ways, it was his way of getting attention, and he wanted to do things his own way. And I think it became more about performance art than performance, and that's when I think it becomes destructive.
That was the dichotomy of Dennis Rodman. There were aspects of his personality that just screamed shyness, and there were other parts of his personality that just wanted to hog the spotlight. Who can explain it?
I think that's a great question on the psyche of Dennis.
Not to play dime store psychologist here.
I'm not a psychologist.
Look, I'm not a psychologist.
I'm not a psychologist. I'm not trying to get into Dennis's head.
I'm not qualified psychologically.
I don't pretend to be a psychologist. I'm just married to one.
I don't want to come across as a pop psychologist here.
But
There's always a but. So let's pretend to be a psychologist for a second.
I don't think you go from being an introvert to an extrovert. Dennis, in a lot of ways, was a very shy, guarded individual who didn't want to be hurt emotionally by things again, and in some ways adopted this persona that was good for him and entertained other people.
Is this really who you are, or is this a big image-building campaign? Who is the real Dennis Rodman?
Everybody wants to know that, but they can't have that.
At the end of the 1994-95 season, the Spurs lost to the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. And even after back-to-back rebounding titles in San Antonio, Dennis Rodman had outworn his welcome.
He hated San Antonio. He thought that David Robinson was soft.
everyone's not the same. I mean, we weren't the same, but that doesn't mean we couldn't coexist. He was a key part of what we were trying to do, but at the end of the day, you know, it was an experiment that didn't work for us.
In San Antonio, I was trying to find a new identity, and I found it. But as far as playing on a basketball court, it wasn't working.
Dennis was a throwback to an era that was slowly disappearing. And so it was looking very much like there would not be a place for this guy. Wherever he went, he was going to be a ticking time bomb.
Michael Jordan is returning. He released a press release today that said, quote, "I'm back." Michael Jordan has ended his 17 months away from the game of basketball. He comes back immediately, making Chicago a title contender again.
Following 3 consecutive championships, Michael Jordan retired from basketball to make a run at playing Major League Baseball. In his return to the Chicago Bulls in March of 1995, at the end of his 17-game midseason comeback, the Bulls would lose in the second round of the NBA playoffs.
After Michael came back, it was like, okay, we have to restructure this team, and how are we going to restructure this team?
We needed some physicality. You know, that was the biggest thing that we needed as a team.
I made a list, you know, priority list. I made a list of 5 guys, and Dennis was the 5th guy on the list.
When Dennis' name came up, Phil pulled me and Scotty in, and he asked, you know, what did you guys feel about Dennis? You know, we have a chance to get Dennis. Scotty was totally against it, which I understood, because when we played Detroit, he and Scotty had some really heated battles. Scotty didn't like it. My biggest concern, well, okay, Phil, who's gonna control this guy when he gets a little bit out of control? Phil said, I got him.
I just said, he's going to be a person that we're going to have to caretake, and we're going to have to make allowances for some of his behavior.
I said, well, I don't have a problem with him. And Scotty reluctantly accepted it.
The Spurs today traded the controversial Rodman to the Chicago Bulls.
To win a championship, you need pieces. And I was that piece they wanted. It was just a match made in heaven, right?
Dennis Rodman got ready for Chicago's training camp by revealing yet another new look.
Entering the 1995-96 season, the stakes were massively high for Dennis Rodman. Even after playing 9 NBA seasons, he was nearly broke.
Between taxes and living and an ex-wife and a daughter, he rented a nice house, but he had nothing saved up.
And also, his reputation around the league had gotten to the point that he was radioactive. Dennis realized that in his own way, he had to straighten out, and he had to play seriously, or else his career was over.
Phil, should you get into a situation where he starts rebelling, how will you deal with that?
I have absolutely no idea.
I just love Phil from day one.
I've always told Phil, I said, Phil, damn, you realize something? If we was living in the 70s together, we'd be in Woodstock just smoking it up.
Bulls had this unique ability of leadership with Jordan and Pippen and Phil Jackson. Of all teams, we can probably absorb this lunatic more than anybody else. Dennis idolized Michael Jordan, almost like a fan. He wanted Michael's approval.
That's funny as hell, huh? Wow, people say that. I respected Michael so much what I did.
That part Dennis is lying to you about. Dennis Rodman loves Michael Jordan's dirty ass drawers.
I wouldn't say idolize. He viewed it as my team. And if things needed to be said, I could easily say it and Dennis would respect that.
Halfway through the season, it became so clear that this team was going to be historically good because they were meshing in a way that very few teams had ever meshed before.
The Bulls started the season 41-3, including an 18-game winning streak.
But even with having Michael Jordan there beside him, he still would go off the rails.
In March of his first season in Chicago, he lapsed.
Dennis got a technical foul. And Ted Bernard. It looked like he headbutted him.
After the game, we just let him have it. Hey, look, man, you promised us we can count on you, blah, blah, blah. You can't do this.
You butted the guy in the head. I butted him. Suspend me. Rod Thorne, David Stern, suspend me, okay? Make an example out of Dennis Rodman. I don't care.
The Chicago Bulls forward was suspended for 6 games and hit with a $20,000 fine.
Despite the headbutting incident, the Bulls would go on to a historically great season, winning a record-setting 72 games and capturing the 1996 NBA championship.
The Chicago Bulls have won the 95-96 NBA championship.
Just weeks after the Chicago Bulls won the NBA title, Dennis planned to release his autobiography, Bad As I Wanna Be. To promote his release, he announced that he would be getting married at a Fifth Avenue bookstore in New York City. What he didn't reveal is who would be the bride.
The wedding dress is the shining moment. Your wedding dress is peak Rodman. I can't help but smile when I think of the wedding dress.
We really didn't know how big it was going to be till we started going down Fifth Avenue with all the police. It was bedlam. It was literally like Princess Diana or something's getting married.
I kept telling myself, did I take this too far? I figured it'd be a few hundred people. It was thousands of people.
Basketball star Dennis Rodman had announced he'd get married, but he showed up as the bride.
You know, I've always thought that the most beautiful thing about a bride is the nose rings. I think that's a very attractive look.
That dress to some people may have been the dumbest thing ever, but when he put that dress on, the entire world, even in Tibet, knew who Dennis Rodman was.
That jump-started my whole second coming of Dennis Rodman. That was the beginning of the rock star Dennis Rodman.
Him in that wedding dress, that's iconic.
That is Rodman at his individualistic best. The wedding dress.
A week after its release, Bad As I Wanna Be shot to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list.
What I found was you can be a TV star or a movie star or an athletic star, but if you're an author and you're #1, you own the world.
In a world where attitude and image are everything, it's Dennis Rodman's universe, and we're all just living in it.
Today, starring Dennis Rodman.
When I was a kid, I played paper dolls. I wish I had this. This is the Dennis Rodman doll.
What a way to make a living, huh?
There is evidence of Rodmania run rampant. Rodman's entrance to the home court brings a roar from the crowd that even surpasses basketball's royal airness.
As funny as it sounds, I was more famous than Michael for 3 years in a row.
Yes, he was as famous as Michael Jordan in 96, 97, 98.
It's like saying that somebody had become more popular in Vatican City than the Pope. But here's the thing, there were people throughout America, who did not feel any kind of connection to Michael Jordan.
Dennis was the tangible superstar. You could see him. He would show up at places.
If he went out at night, Dennis was there. He didn't sit in a corner booth with velvet ropes. Dennis was right at the bar, and if somebody walked up, Dennis would buy him a drink.
And Dennis Rodman would buy a lot of drinks, embarking on a miraculous Groundhog Day-like routine of basketball and partying that seemed to defy human biology.
I would literally stay out till like 5, 6 in the morning. I mean, it was like every night.
Dennis Rodman would play a game, hustle for 48 minutes. He would work out after the game. Then Dennis, may have a few beers, maybe had 2 dozen.
He is a freak of nature when it comes to rebounding and alcohol consumption. It is insane.
He can go out at night and then come in the next morning and run like a gazelle.
One night, everybody was buying him shots, and that night he did 40 Jägermeister shots, just completely plastered. And the next day, he wakes up in the morning, and it's like it didn't happen. He was superhuman.
As long as I perform and do my job, I can do anything.
In all honesty, playing with Dennis and the lifestyle that he lived, I never thought he would see 40 because he burned both ends of the candle.
I know this is a little strange, but I want to stop us here for a second. I want you to close your eyes. You, in the Dennis Rodman jersey.
Who, me?
Yeah, man, you. Close your eyes.
Okay.
Now imagine you're on a mountaintop. The sun is shining, the air is the freshest you've ever inhaled. This is Dennis Rodman's life. He's a champion. He just signed a $9 million contract. He parties every night. Women adore him. He's truly at the proverbial summit. And unfortunately, this is the point where it starts to cause some serious problems. Fame came at a cost.
I'm very proud of my son. Very proud.
After Philander Rodman left his family in the mid-1960s, he continued serving in the Air Force until 1977, and eventually settled in the Philippines, where over the next 30 years, he would father more than 25 children. I know, that's not normal.
Neither is it normal to have a dad named Philander. I mean, people sometimes live out their names. It's been found, but oh my God.
In February of 1997, Philander Rodman would show up at a Bulls game to attempt to reconnect with his son for the first time in 30 years.
People kept saying, Dennis, look up there, your father's up there with a camera crew. I was like, really? And he was up there signing autographs.
That him up because his dad wanted a piece of Dennis's fame. It's like, I want nothing to do with you your whole life, and all of a sudden, here I am.
It was just difficult because I couldn't believe he picked this particular time to try to be a part of my life now. And I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. Even to this day, I really haven't really thought about my father at all, if I want to call him that.
Fame also became a complication in his strained relationship with his mother. While they had slowly mended old wounds since Dennis's days in Oklahoma, the fragility of their relationship became apparent in Chicago.
He had it rough in Chicago for a while. People started influencing him mentally and taking him away. I was not important. I started losing him. I went up there several times and I don't know what happened. Don't even ask me. I don't know what happened. And that hurt so deeply that I kind of drew away more and more because I said, Dennis, I'll just quietly stay in my place. And if you need me for anything, Mother will always be where you can find her.
Oh, what a save!
Needless to say, the dynamics of Dennis's social life had changed over the past decade. And those close to him worried that the people he surrounded himself with were taking advantage of him, especially financially. And Dennis didn't seem to mind.
When they was around me, everyone had a smile on their face. You know, taking advantage or not taking advantage.
I would get mad at him. We would fight about it constantly. If you got to pay people to hang out with you, they're not your friends.
We got into an argument once. We were talking about the women and the entourage and all these people around them. And I said, listen, man, these people don't give a damn about you. They're using you. They're using you for your money, your fame. And he stopped and looked at me and said, Big Will, do you honestly think I don't know that these people don't care about me? That hit me hard.
Dennis, he was caught in the middle. He liked fame, but he didn't know how to deal with fame.
George will tell you that I would cry sometimes, and I'll say, why I have to be so famous? He'll put me in a room, let me just try to get it out my system. Because sometimes I'll just be so like, damn, why? When people saw me and got used to me doing these things, people expected me to be that person. You know, I just wanted to play basketball, entertain, win championship, but I did it to myself. I brought this on to myself.
It was within this context and complicated relationship with fame that Dennis's second and third season in Chicago would play out. And it wasn't always pretty. In January of 1997, he kicked a cameraman.
Oh my goodness, Rodman just kicked the photographer.
What? I need help? I'm a sick individual? Oh God.
We're not going to tolerate uncivilized behavior.
He's at it again. What is wrong with that psycho? They don't understand, though. I'm not crazy.
The Dennis that we were watching, I knew that the places that he was at weren't giving him the unconditional love that he was looking for. And you could see there was a crying out for help. I just felt like wasn't nobody helping.
Even with questions about Dennis Rodman's mental stability and fitness to play NBA basketball pouring in, the Chicago Bulls forged on, winning 2 more championships to finish off their second three-peat of the decade.
The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship.
Following that season, after the breakup of the Bulls, Dennis left Chicago. He married Carmen Electra in Las Vegas in 1998, but it lasted less than 6 months. He played a short stint with the Lakers in 1999, but partying became the dominant force in his life. His final stop, a month with the Dallas Mavericks in 2000, ended unceremoniously.
He was charged with drunken driving, suspended by the league once, ejected twice, and he was in on that 4-9 Dallas record.
It was horrible. I mean, you know, he's just a good guy. We were considered the dregs of the NBA. And we were not going to be someone's first stop if you were making a comeback in the NBA. And so when he didn't work out with us, kind of the writing was on the wall, and you didn't really know what was next.
That man, standing on the top of the mountain in 1997, reflecting on how incomprehensible the ascent had been, would soon be equally astonished at how swift the descent would be.
I know I my life up. I did it. If people think I'm stupid, I'm not stupid. You know, I ain't bring my life to where it is. I got to test my club to people who like me. They like me. They like me. Well, shut up. I don't hear it. Oh, it's all love. It's all love. It's all love.
What's up, man? How you doing, man? What's up, man? Good, man. He didn't have a plan B. He didn't have any hobbies. It ain't like he was studying the violin or some shit. There was nothing else to do but party.
Okay, so I'm looking into this, right? Okay. Life back then was nothing but a party. That's all we did. Every day, every night. He'd be drinking 5 days a week, and then literally we would take 2 days and stay in the house, and he'd start over.
All the drinks are free till we close.
Dennis asked me to marry him 2001 is when, you know, he proposed. Right after DJ was born. And then, of course, Trinity came, our daughter came a year later. The kids and I lived up the hill because that was like the norm. We'd go home and live our normal life because the beach house wasn't normal.
I got you all day though. Boom. Boom.
Police have been to Rodman's house 50 times in the last year, all because of noise problems.
How much did you drink, Dennis?
A couple beers, that's all. It became a routine. Not because I liked it, because I was so used to doing it.
He had to be Dennis Rodman. That's what made him Dennis Rodman, the parties. He wanted to be the life of the party. He wanted to make everybody happy. He didn't want to lose who he was.
At that point, he was becoming more of an everyday drinker, and a lot of the opportunities in his life were starting to get sabotaged.
If you had 5 championship rings, would you give up the California beach party life and come back to the grind of the NBA? That's what Dennis Rodman is talking about doing.
Before the 2003-2004 season, Dennis would attempt a comeback to the NBA. But a week before a scheduled workout with the Denver Nuggets, a night of partying in Las Vegas would end that dream.
More trouble for basketball bad boy Dennis Rodman. Police cited him for misdemeanor DUI. They say he crashed a motorcycle outside a local gentleman's club on Sunday.
He appeared to be intoxicated. He had strong odor of alcohol in his breath.
It was nuts. I thought I broke my leg though, but
His accident in Vegas, that was kind of the end for all of us. The only thing Dennis cared about at that point was literally himself and nothing and no one else.
I know what I'm doing.
They're still making fun of you.
Who cares?
Talking about him, that's all I know.
Who cares? They're talking about Ray. Who cares?
It was more like a John Belushi Animal House character than it was a superstar icon. Everything came apart at the seams.
He was sort of untethered when basketball ended. I think he was just like the balloon that gets let go.
The pop culture world inevitably moves on. Dennis was not ready for it to move on.
Dennis needs the attention because that's what keeps him alive. I don't know that he necessarily wants it, but I think that that is what keeps him believing that he's still out there and that people still care about him.
He wanted the circus never to end. And I think that destroyed him.
What year is it, 2003? No, seriously. Can't believe I survived it, because it went on for like 5, 6, 7 years straight. 27 days a week. It was insane. Yeah, I drank my ass off. Am I ashamed of it? Nope. Do I regret it? I can't regret it. I live it every day. So I just got to deal with it. When it came to the point where I really considered the fact that I did have that really major issue of drinking, it became boredom. I drank because I was bored.
Drinking covers up the pain that he's dealt with through his life with his dad, his mom, and through the fame, all the people that have used him and not cared about him and not loved him.
He is not the way that you see him. I'm not apologizing for him. But alcohol boosts his confidence. I'm so sorry that, I just am so sorry that he can't be who he really wants to be.
Oh my God. Nice. So awesome.
In August of 2011, Dennis Rodman would be inducted into the National Basketball Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Rodman.
He made a big production out of it. He was the last guy, he came down the middle of the aisle, which is Dennis. He had to hold up that whole image. It was so emotionally overwhelming for him.
I didn't want to say it. I kept telling Phil to do it for me. I kept looking back at him and said, Phil, do it for me.
He had those 10 or 12 minutes to make amends. It was more of a confession. And it came from the heart. It came from the heart.
I have one regret. I wish I was a better father. And last but not least, my mother, Shirley Rodman. My mother rarely ever hugged me or hugged my siblings. She didn't know how. I resented her for a long time. I haven't been a great son to you at all the last 10 years, and you know that. I hope for that in the future, that I can actually try to be somewhat of a good individual and a good father to my kids. And hopefully that I can love you like I used to when I was born. And thank you guys.
Part of me felt like it was fake, and part of me wanted to believe it all. I just remember feeling like if you know that you're not there for them and you haven't been the greatest dad, then do something about it. They've needed their dad to be there for them, and he hasn't been there at all.
Trying to get DJ, I had none. I had no relationship at all.
He's not at all present for the kids. He doesn't, at this point, come through for anything as a father. They're getting to a point where they don't care anymore.
Sorry. My son always gets me emotional. Knowing how I am with my son, it's just hard to conceive my dad not being there.
I don't know how to love my kids. I know how to like them. And I think that came from my mother. But I should know better. I've been around on this earth for 50-some years. I should understand how to be a parent.
I think there's guilt, there's shame that my father probably feels. I don't think he wants to deal with the reality of not being a part of my life. I think that him really investigating his guilt and where that guilt comes from, I think that would destroy him.
Everything up to here we could have imagined. Sadly, regretfully, we could have imagined that the 2000s pretty much right on schedule. It's what happened after that that we could have never imagined, that defied every possible expectation and have made us think, what kind of world do we live in exactly? Am I right?
The first thing to know about Dennis Rodman's foray into world politics is that when his first visit to North Korea was being planned for February of 2013, his own agent didn't understand the difference between North and South Korea until his manager, Steve Simon, grew confused about how he was describing the isolationist country.
He looks at me and goes, "You idiot. That's South Korea. Let me see this contract." So I showed it to him and says, Pyongyang, North Korea. And he goes, "You cannot send Dennis to North Korea." He goes, "Do you understand what type of place this is?"
Kim Jong-un, the dictator of North Korea.
This is the leader of a country that is infamous for human rights abuses.
He has repeatedly threatened the United States with destruction and has the material for enough nuclear bombs to make good on that threat.
One of the few things known about the secretive Kim's private life from his days as a student at a Swiss boarding school is that he was an NBA nut, especially big on Rodman's old team, the Bulls.
I want to bridge a gap with North Korea. That's all I want. I want to open that door to talk to them.
Rodman describes it as basketball diplomacy, echoing ping pong diplomacy, the table tennis games that opened communication between the U.S. and China in the 1970s.
Basketball Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman becoming the first American to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
Sir, thank you. You have a friend for life. I love him. I love the guy's awesome.
When you said you love Kim and think he's awesome, were you aware of his threats to destroy the United States and his regime's horrendous record on human rights?
I understand what he's doing. I don't condone that. He's a good guy to me. Guess what? He's my friend.
Dennis continued to travel to North Korea, making 4 separate trips between February of 2013 and January of 2014.
An unlikely and unofficial ambassador is on the ground again.
Let me just reiterate, Mr. Rodman does not represent the United States. He's never been a player in our diplomacy.
There is nobody at the CIA who could tell you more personally about Kim Jong-un than Dennis Rodman, and that in itself is scary.
If you were in a writer's room, what are we going to do for the Rodman reality series? We're going to make him best friends with a tyrant. No, I don't think that'll work. It happened.
What am I getting out of this? I'm going over there out of my kindness of my heart just to try to help. And next thing you know, I come back, wow, why'd I do that so bad?
The backlash was all about the way Dennis vocalized and verbalized in several interviews.
He's my friend for life. I don't care what you guys think about him.
The other problem is he was drunk in several of the interviews.
The guy is my friend forever and ever and ever.
The first trip he drank, but it wasn't the one that put him over the edge. It was the 4th trip in January of 2014.
Rodman has just announced that he's taking a team of former American players to the communist country for a game celebrating Kim's birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
On that trip, Dennis was on a bender to end all benders.
On that trip, he erupted into a drunken tirade against an Irish journalist.
Are you banking on something? Really? Yes, you are. Gonna help people. That's it.
Then days later, he appeared drunk on CNN where he discussed Kenneth Bae, a Korean-American missionary who was imprisoned in North Korea after being convicted of trying to overthrow the government.
I'm just saying, no, I don't give a what the, I don't give a rat's ass what the hell you think. I'm saying to you, look at these guys here. Look at them.
That was the lowest of the low. Nothing, has ever been that bad.
A week after returning home, Dennis checked into rehab.
I'm not an ambassador. I'm Dennis Rodman, just an individual, just showing the world the fact that we can actually get along and be happy for one day. I love to see
Dennis struggled with the negativity of North Korea because he really thought he was doing something good. But if you look, everything really did a full circle.
On November 8th, 2014, Kenneth Bae was released from North Korea.
Well, I thank Dennis Rodman for being a catalyst for my release because his rant and my media attention on my plight was increased.
In June of 2018, Dennis traveled to Singapore for a summit between Kim and American President Donald Trump. While he didn't attend the meeting itself, he was in the country to offer support.
Well, it's exciting to be a part of it.
It was the first time a sitting U.S. president would meet face-to-face with a North Korean leader.
Regardless of what you think of that summit, I don't think that summit happens without Dennis Rodman. I'm going to say that sentence again because it's almost impossible to imagine. A summit between the US president and the leader of North Korea might not have happened without Dennis Rodman. That's a true statement.
It's a good thing they're talking, right? So that is my biggest legacy, and that's the biggest thing I want in my life to carry on for the future. That's why I want to leave that right there, that legacy. I got so many death threats when I was sitting there protecting everything. And I believed in North Korea. And when I went home, I couldn't even go home. I couldn't even go home. But I kept my head up high, brother. I knew things were going to change. I always say, what is the good in Dennis Rodman now? What's the good in Dennis Rodman now? Is it North Korea? Wow. Is it winning NBA titles? What is it?
Dennis is definitely in pain. He's definitely fighting a lot of demons because he doesn't know what to do next. The best thing he could do is end his life with his family.
That's alright, Mama.
Your mom's getting older. She's not gonna ask you for anything. She doesn't want anything from you. She just wants you.
That's a big void in my life right there. I'm getting older, you know, I'm thinking about settling down. I'm trying to be a normal person now. And I just keep thinking about her.
I just wished I could see my son more often. But I wished he felt that he could come home. Listen, that's a constant prayer 7 nights a week. I want my son. I don't have him. I just want us to be a family. But it may not happen in my lifetime.
She's probably on that last leg of her life. One of these days, I'm gonna have to break down and have to go have a one-on-one talk with her and just let her rest in peace after that. I'm learning more and more to actually throw away the selfishness of being Dennis Rodman. It's not always about Dennis Rodman. Those things are just breaking down more and more each time I see my kids. Alexis, she had a new baby. It's funny though, I get the baby and I hold the baby like this. She said, "You can hold the baby closer." I said, "I'm not used to it." And I'm like looking at it. It dawned on me the fact that I'm a grandfather, and that's my daughter right there. I'm like, wow.
It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And we can't change anything. We can't change anything about what happened, but my son brings out a hope that maybe my dad can try now with my son.
There's no one stopping Dennis Rodman but Dennis Rodman. If I have anybody to blame for me being who I am, there's only one person, that's me. I've got to blame me, nobody else. So if I die today, I'm gonna die alone, but guess what? I gotta take all those demons with me. I don't want to have my last breath before I die, so I wish I could have loved you guys more.
The force of nature that he was on that basketball court was undeniable.
He was the all-time greatest rebounder that ever put an NBA uniform on.
He did change mainstream sports culture when the walls needed to be rattled.
The most valuable thing on the earth is a voice, and he had one.
He is a lone rebel. Dennis Rodman is singular.
It's said that the journey should be cherished and the destination ignored. But what about the destination? When a life has been lived and every door open, when only the destination remains, what's left? Maybe just a simple question. Whatever was desperately pursued along the way, was it found?
Nah, it's just hard, man. It's hard. It's hard sometimes, I'm one of the top 10 people on this planet that people recognize. Should be happy, right? Funny, huh? Weird, huh?